Thank you, and we're pleased to have you join us for a day filled with informative dialogue. We hope that you walk away better informed and equipped with the tools and resources you need to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion practices where you work. The importance of this work can't be overstated. Today, more than ever, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to work together towards a fair and equitable society. A society in which people of all backgrounds have equal access to fair housing and the educational, financial, and healthcare resources they need to thrive. The investment industry has a large role to play in helping to rebalance the scales and one that will ultimately benefit our members. This is a goal that I've been working for my entire life. I've known and experienced discrimination. I grew up in the segregated South in Galveston, Texas, where the Juneteenth celebration that took place just a few days ago originated. Juneteenth is the celebration of the announcement of the Emancipation Proclamation on June 19 in 1865, more than 2 years after President Lincoln first issued it. Just last week, President Biden signed a law that made Juneteenth an official federal holiday. This historic event has a liberating moment that deeply affected people then and now, including me. As a young man, I set out to California for a promise of a brighter future. And it paid off, thanks in part to the education I received along the way and the opportunities afforded to me by a public service career with the Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm grateful to be in a position today as the first Black president of the Calpers board to help make things better for future generations, and I'm inspired by activism throughout the country in the last year. We saw people of all ethnicities and social economic backgrounds come together to push back against systemic racism and to initiate dialogue for lasting change. For the first time in a long time, we have momentum on our side to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion practices across all sectors of the economy. The business community is seeing the value. Investors are seeing the value. Significant victories are being had, including the placement of diverse directors on the boards of public companies across the nation, thanks to the 3D Equilar database, which CalPERS and CalSTRS partnered to create. And a new partnership like the Human Capital Management Coalition have been created. These partnerships have led to important advocacy work with regulatory agencies and the corporate boards of companies we invest in. In addition, we're seeing an acceleration in the establishment of executive positions devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the aftermath of the social unrest last year, for example, CalPERS established its first chief diversity and inclusion officer on the executive team. That led to the development of a diversity, equity, and inclusion framework for the organization. Internally, the framework supports our effort to recruit and retain top talent. Externally, the framework supports our work to advocate for diversity on corporate boards and human capital management policies that drive strong performance. CalPERS has also focused our DEI efforts on our health program by initiating a survey of enrolled members to ensure they have access to the care they need. At the outset, our goal is to better understand the demographic makeup of our members by offering them the opportunity to voluntarily share information about sexual orientation and gender identity. This is a first time effort that we expect to garner important data that's often left out of a person's overall health considerations. So while much has been accomplished in the years since we first began the CalPERS, CalSTRS Diversity Forum, there's still more to be done. So where do we go from here? What comes next? And what role can the investment community play in bringing about equality? Those topics and much more will be front and center during the discussion you hear today. So let's talk a little about today's program. We have an excellent lineup of speakers, including Securities and Exchange Commissioner Allison Herring Lee, and leaders from the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and the Chartered Financial Analyst Institute. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more in store on the agenda. We have sessions focused on the advocacy work ahead, integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion into our investments, and the importance of partnership in the years to come. You'll also have a chance to listen in on conversations between investment industry leaders whose notable successes we can all learn from. So when we finish later this afternoon, I hope you leave convinced that diversity, equity, and inclusion is much more than the right thing to do. It's an important opportunity to balance the scales and deliver opportunities in new and innovative ways. So I'm pleased now to turn it over to Harry Keely, Board Chair of California State Teachers Retirement System, for his welcome remarks. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. I have a deep respect and admiration for you and your own personal journey and your accomplishments in life. You're a great inspiration to so many people. And so thank you for the introduction. I'm thrilled to be here with you and all our attendees at the third annual Calpers Diversity Forum. As the chairman of the California State Teachers Retirement System and the father of two daughters, Melissa and Sarah, I cannot stress enough the importance of diversity, but not just gender diversity. We believe that at CalSTRS, the diversity of experience, background, skills, gender, race, culture, and all the ways that people can differ from one another, visibly or not, leads to better decision-making, better results, and stronger companies. I'm excited to share some news that we recently broke at CalSTRS, and that is the appointment of Cassandra Linknock, our current Chief Operating Officer at CalSTRS, was selected as our next CEO. Cassandra will be the first female CEO in more than 100 years, and she will take that office on July 1st. And she succeeded in a very rigorous and global search process, and she emerged as the candidate to lead CalSTRS into the future. And our board is thrilled to have Cassandra lead CalSTRS into the future and be our first female CEO. At CalSTRS, we don't just talk the talk, but we believe we walk the walk. We value diversity and believe it's imperative that our internal investment team, as well as our investment partners and the boards of the companies in which we invest, reflect the rich diversity of the members we serve and, of course, of our country. Let me tell you about the diversity that shows up within the CalSTRS investment team, something of which I am very, very proud. We have a world-class investment team at CalSTRS, and the board is proud of the work that they do. CalSTRS was named the best place to work in money management in 2020 by Pension Investments magazine. This is the 6th time that CalSTRS has been recognized for this award in 9 years, and is a testament to the strong leadership that we've been benefited from by Christopher Ailman for 20 plus years now. The award demonstrates CalSTRS' commitment to considering the overall well-being of and the culture of CalSTRS. CalSTRS staff is comprised of individuals representing diversity of age, gender, ethnic, and cultural backgrounds. I'll share some stats about the investment branch that I'm incredibly proud of and hope that you'll find interesting. There are 83 women in the investment staff and 93 men. At the investment director level, there are 7 female directors compared with 6 male directors. Over half of the investment branch, 51%, self-identify as ethnicity other than white. CalSTRS is currently in the process of implementing our collaborative model of investments, which will enable our diverse investment staff to manage more assets in-house. As we hire more than 90 investment professionals over the next 5 years, we continue to look to innovate for innovative solutions to build an inclusive culture that will draw the best talent from the investment industry. Another program that we're proud of is our student intern program. Since 2004, the CalSTRS investment branch has mentored students from diverse backgrounds who are underrepresented on Wall Street. Students shadow our chief investment officer for 1 week and gain experience working with members of each asset class throughout their time with us. Students also complete 500 hours of work experience required to take the investment officer 1 exam upon graduation from college. This program provides a wonderful opportunity to these students and helps to prepare them for a career in the investment industry. I can assure you that being on the board for 12 years now, each year when Christopher introduces these young men and women, they are some of the most diverse people that you could ever imagine. And it is great to see them in our boardroom, and the board is always thrilled to see this young group of people pursuing careers in the investment industry. I'd also like to share some other updates as they relate to diversity. We hired a diversity-focused investment officer in 2021. Ms. Lachey Badalita started in this role in January and is responsible for managing and coordinating our investment management diversity and inclusion strategy. CalSTRS continues to host events in addition to the Diversity Forum. Our Beyond Talk workshops encourage investment industry leaders to move beyond simply talking about gender diversity within the workplace to making tangible changes. The events have examined other important topics such as unconscious bias and the use and effects of microaggressions. Beyond Talk is a multi-year program where we partner with some of the largest and most influential investment managers in the world, which recently included Goldman Sachs, PIMCO, and Invesco. The demand and attendance for these events is strong, which speaks to the appetite to have these conversations in the industry on an ongoing basis. We also continued our long record of promoting gender diversity on corporate boards through engagement and coalitions with like-minded investors. In 2015, CalSTRS and Calpers launched what's now known as the California Group, which has also included the Los Angeles County Employees Retirement Association and the San Francisco Employee Retirement System, to engage California headquartered companies who lacked board diversity and had 0 women on their boards. After 6 years of successful campaigning, this initiative has now been expanded to ask California-based companies in the Russell 3000 Index to include individuals with diverse backgrounds on their board, inclusive of gender, race, ethnicity, and LGBTQ+ identity. Through the 30% Coalition, representing more than $6 trillion in assets under management, institutional investors, members engaged over 250 companies as part of the quote, adopt a company, end quote, campaign. Engagement and achievements include 115 companies appointed women to their boards, most for the first time. 30 companies appointed a second woman to their board. 37 shareholder proposals filed urged urging action and disclosure on board diversity. 33 of the shareholder proposals were withdrawn following mutually agreed upon outcomes. 390 companies have appointed a woman to the board, most for the first time since the quote, adopt a company, end quote, campaign launched in 2012. In closing, CalSTRS will continue to build on these efforts and find new ways to strengthen our investments and operations to expand our diverse workforce internally and in the companies in which we invest. There's so much more I could tell you, but I don't want to delay getting this important discussion we'll be having today. So thanks again for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you today. And I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Jones, to introduce our next keynote speaker. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Harry, and thank CalSTRS for their long-term relationship with Calpers, and as we try to make a difference in our investment world. So it's now my honor to introduce this morning's keynote speaker. You may have been expecting to hear from Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, but unfortunately, she was unable to join us. Instead, we are pleased to present Marlene Timberlake D'Adamo, who was just named yesterday as CalPERS' first Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Marlene stepped up to serve as the interim Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer last year in June, while also serving as our Chief Compliance Officer. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, known as DEI, and compliance have much in common. They are both rooted in fairness and help protect people and the organization. Since she was appointed, Marlene has worked collaboratively across the organization to develop a DEI framework that outlines CalPERS' goals, objectives, and initiatives towards achieving a diverse, equitable, and inclusive working environment built on consistent data. The framework was presented to the board in March this year as part of an annual report highlighting our commitment to diversity and inclusion. In her presentation, Marlene labeled it as foundational and aggressively inclusive, which goes to show how important this work is, and that will continually evolve. In her new role, Marlene will help foster an internal culture of equity, equality, respect, and inclusiveness to enhance team engagement and drive higher customer satisfaction ratings with our members. Externally, she'll partner with our investment office in our ongoing environmental, social, and governance work to meet organizational objectives and ensure strong fund performance. Marlene's new role will also have her engage with our health program in their efforts to ensure members have access to the care they need based on race, ethnicity, and gender identity. Marlene's experience and long tenure in the finance and compliance fields have prepared her well for the job ahead. She has served in many leadership roles over the last 30 years, including an interim appointment as CalPERS Chief Financial Officer, Managing Director and Senior Vice President of Portfolio and Risk Management at PNC Bank in Philadelphia, Chief Compliance Officer of GlenMed Investment Management, and Vice President of GlenMed Trust Company. Marlene holds a bachelor's degree, magna cum laude, from Seton Hall University and Juris Doctorate degree from Beasley School of Law at Temple University. She'll be talking to us today about what comes next in the practice of DEI and the path forward for CalPERS using the DEI framework. So join me and please welcome Marlene Timberlake D'Adamo. Marlene, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, President Jones and Chair Keely, for your insightful remarks. Welcome, everyone, to the CalPERS and CalSTRS Diversity Forum. I am very happy to be coming to you in my new capacity as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for CalPERS. Those of you who are familiar with the sorry. Those of you who are familiar with this event know that our organizations have been sponsors for many years. This event stands as a testament to the longstanding commitment we have to diversity and an acknowledgement of the importance of diversity, that diversity is to us as investors. It speaks to our desire to continue to foster these conversations amongst and between members of the investment community. We believe that this forum and others like it create connections that allow our organizations to get to know diverse individuals and firms in an effort ultimately to improve our investment performance. Both Calpers and CalSTRS has maintained a steadfast commitment to diversity, as detailed by the two previous speakers. As long-term investors with fiduciary responsibility to the millions of members to whom we pay pension benefits, we were some of the first organizations to insist on diversity on public company boards. In years past, the Diversity Forum was a way to recognize how the richness of our backgrounds continue to contribute to the overall mosaic of our environments and the way in which we perform as a team. Today, the need for diversity has never been greater. We see in nearly every aspect of our personal and professional lives the ways in which we and those around us can benefit from being part of a diverse environment. Research has long held that diverse environments and diverse organizations perform better. Our organizations have long acknowledged and acted upon our beliefs regarding the benefits of diversity. As it relates to investments, we've been doing this for many years. At Calpers, we have an entire investment principle dedicated to the importance of diversity and the role we think it serves in improving investment performance. We weave diversity, equity, and inclusion principles into nearly every aspect of the work that we do. It is part of our core values. It has a role in our sustainable investments program. It is firmly rooted in our culture and human resource practices, and now will figure largely in our health program and in our supplier relationships. It grounds and anchors the way we treat one another and figures largely in our overall relationships. Last summer, Marcy Frost, our CEO, created the role of Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. It was created to be both an accountable leader and a single point of contact for diversity across the organization. Marcy asked me to lead the effort to put together a diversity framework for the organization. The instructions were simple: create a framework that is purposeful, practical, and gets results. No pie in the sky, no platitudes to the meaning of diversity. It needed to be focused on our mission, to pay pension and health benefits to our members and their beneficiaries. It needed to be effective in the environments within which we exist and where we can leverage our influence. We immediately set to work. Working with partners across the organization, including human resources, the Calpers Diversity Outreach Team, the investment office, the health program, our supplier management program, and the executive team, Calpers' new framework sets initiatives designed to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion within our environment. Ultimately, in March of 2021, Calpers introduced the framework to our board. We selected 5 areas based on 2 criteria: where it would make the biggest difference and where we could exert the most influence. Our goal was to be purposeful and to be able to create change. The areas we selected were culture, team, health, investments, and supplier diversity. With our sights set squarely on these themes, we have committed to seeing meaningful change in these areas. In this first year, we will continue to develop the initiatives, metrics, and benchmarks such that our progress can be tracked and measured. Our framework is dynamic. In subsequent years, we will continue to build on the progress we have made, each year setting new initiatives aimed at improving diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our ecosystem. We will constantly measure our progress and pivot where necessary. The level of support and engagement I personally have received has been spectacular. Board members and team members alike have signed on enthusiastically to support and participate. I look forward to this next endeavor and ask that you keep your eyes on us. This work will only be successful if everyone participates. In closing, I ask that each of you figure out where your efforts are best spent and jump in. The water is warm and the forecast is good. I hope you enjoyed today's forum. Our first diversity dialogue begins at 9 a.m. featuring SEC Commissioner Allison Heron-Lee. Thank you.